ActionSA is opposing the South African Human Rights Commission's stance on healthcare access for undocumented foreign nationals. Let's now find out why, and I'm joined now by ActionSA's Parliamentary Chief Whip, Lerato Ngobeni. Lerato, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. You heard what the Commissioner from the South African Human Rights Commission had to say there, Sandra Makwashe. What's your reaction as ActionSA?
Thank you very much, Aldrin, and good morning to the viewers. You know, we responded to the South African Human Rights Commission purely because we would like them to be consistent in their mandate to support human rights and to protect human rights. Let me underscore it by also saying that we as ActionSA broadly are not against, human rights or affording people who are vulnerable assistance in our country. But I think it goes without saying, and it's very clear now, that we've got a situation where the system is being overrun. And I want to make a simple example that says you cannot take on or live beyond your means. And currently we are living beyond our means in South Africa. Our hospitals are being overrun. I can tell you, my colleague, Dr. Khosile Tlape, is always doing oversight at various hospitals around the country and in Gauteng in particular. And the situation is very dire. And so we are saying that the Constitution must not be weaponized to continue to aid and abet lawlessness and to normalize the abnormal. We need a situation where the same as applies to South Africans when we travel, you've got to be able to demonstrate that, number one, you're able to support yourself while you're in that country, and that you have medical assistance should you need it when you present yourself in that country. Now, we appreciate that you've got asylum seekers and people who are vulnerable, who have left their countries to come to our country for a better life. But that does not mean that the Constitution and the provisions of Section 27 and other sections of our Constitution must be abused to accommodate people who have originally come into our country illegally. If people are here illegally, they are illegal. You cannot normalize the abnormal. And that's really where we are challenging the South African Human Rights Commission, who are always mum on other things. And for example, I want to also underscore very deeply that we've been writing to the South African Human Rights Commission asking them to help us put pressure, for example, for the people of Lily Mine, who are still sitting there underground, and the people, their families still camping outside the mine with no help from anyone else. And yet, and those people were legal South Africans doing their work, having gone to work, and nobody's saying anything about it. And so this is the hypocrisy that we're challenging as ActionSA.
In your statement, you say that through the misapplication of Section 27 of the Constitution, access to healthcare has been inappropriately extended in a manner that places immense pressure on an already overburdened system. In what way has Section 27 been misapplied? And I'm also asking this basis on if ActionSA says that there should be an amendment of the Constitution, then surely you must have identified that there's an issue with the Constitution, and it can't necessarily be that it has been misapplied.
Aldrin, the issue of illegal migrants in our country and the influx of people who we cannot trace in our country is no longer an academic exercise. You can ask anyone, you can be in any community around our country. Let me tell you one of the anecdotes that we have received around the idea that, you know, people are able to go into our hospitals, into our clinics, and because of the sheer that some of them are undocumented, you cannot verify their documentation, literally go on a medical tour, on a pill tour, medicine.
Yeah, sure. I understand that, Lerato. I'm so sorry. We're running out of time here, but I want to understand the aspect around the misapplication. In which way is there misapplication of Section 27?
We believe that it is being disabused. It's been abused. It is being used for people to be able to collect medicine and then go sell it in their own countries. We are saying that we want people to be documented first before they can receive assistance in our country. We cannot afford it, and that is a fact. It's no longer an academic exercise, and we want this Constitution to prioritize its citizens first, and then we can extend our services.
So it's not a misapplication, but it's rather an abuse.
This is exactly what I said in the statement. We said
The
it is an
statement says that
abuse.
through the misapplication of Section 27, which is something different to an abuse, because there could be a loophole, and that loophole is being abused. But the misapplication, a misapplication from who? By who?
Well, I mean, it's semantics are semantics, Eldrin, and I don't think that is what we need to be debating. What we are debating is the fact that these things need to be relooked, and constitutions are a living document. If in fact the constitution no longer captures the aspiration of a people of a nation, that is why we go through constitutional reviews, and that is why we have sent in our submissions for that constitutional review and for the prioritization of citizens and everyone else coming second.
Yeah, and then when it comes to the Hippocratic oath that is taken by medical and emergency staff members, how would the Hippocratic oath find expression in the amendment that you are proposing as ActionSA?
Firstly, we are not opposed to the Hippocratic oath. We believe that it's the correct oath ethically for people not to be refused medical care. What we are saying here
so
is
whether
that
documented or undocumented?
Whether documented or undocumented, but we are saying, Eldrin, that the system is overrun with people who are undocumented. There is a value chain now here that needs to be activated to make sure that there is no one in our country who can be sitting there undocumented. There must be referrals. If somebody's undocumented, they must be sent back to Home Affairs for Home Affairs to legalize them. And that it does not mean that they cannot receive critical care or care that can get them to come back into the hospital if they are not critically ill. And a lot of people who are in our system, I dare say, are not always critically ill or at the verge of death. We don't want to be a country that can do that to people. But you have seen that the system is overrun by people who are sitting in our hospitals who cannot get care from their own countries. Otherwise, our country needs to be able to get some form of remuneration for being able to take care of their people when their governments are failing them. And we think that is a logical step for us to take. And we cannot sit down and be quiet on issues like these just because South Africans must be made to feel bad about how it is that they are feeling. You mentioned it very rightfully that we also as South Africans are suffering under the same pressure. And there's no way that you can prioritize people who are coming from elsewhere and neglect your own citizens just because there's a constitution that says everybody has got all of these rights. We will never progressively realize these rights because we ultimately do not even have an economic system that is functional, that can look after everybody who's living in South Africa.
And just quickly, Lerato, in conclusion, it will take a couple of years even if you were to be successful in the amendment of the Constitution and looking at having to canvass views from the public as well. But what do you think should be happening in the meantime before we get to that amendment? Because the pressure is something that is being felt currently.
Well, South Africans must continue to voice their views. You cannot have political parties.
But should they be blocking people from accessing health, though?
No, we do not believe in lawlessness, Aldrin. We cannot have people taking the law into their own hands. But if the state agencies that are supposed to be protecting citizens fail to do so, that is what ultimately happens. And this is why we are casting a light on these things, because at the end of the day, you've got citizens doing what the state is supposed to be doing, fixing their own potholes, having to block people from accessing this healthcare that we're speaking about today. And this is what we want to stop. We cannot have citizens taking the law into their own hands because their own state is failing them.
Right.
But if we don't talk about these things, it's going to get out of control. And this is the powder cake that we're trying to prevent from happening. And that's why we're putting the buck where it is. And the state